you ever noticed how just one tiny little word can completely change what a sentence means? Well, today we're diving into the world of determiners. These are the small words that have a huge impact on clarity. Let's get right into it. So I want to start with a question that trips up, well, just about everyone. Is it a university or an university? Now, you might think you know the answer based on that first letter, but stick around because the real rule is actually way more interesting than what they probably taught you in school. So what in the world are determiners anyway? I like to think of them as the GPS for your nouns. You know, they're these little words that pop up right before a noun to give us more info. Like, are we talking about a specific one or a general one? How many are there and who do they belong to? They give our sentences some much needed direction and precision. All right, so let's start with the most common determiners out there, the articles a, an, and the. And right off the bat, we're gonna solve that little puzzle from the beginning by busting a super common grammar myth. This slide really says it all. We all learned the old rule, right? You use an before the vowel letters A, E, I, O, U. But the real rule, the one that actually works, is all about the vowel sound. Let's break down what that actually means. Okay, so take the phrase a European trip. Yeah, the word European starts with the letter E, which is a vowel, but just listen to how you say it, European. That first sound, that y sound, is a consonant. And because it starts with a consonant sound, we use A. It's the same reason we say a university or a union. And here's the flip side of that coin. In an honest person, the word honest starts with an H, which is a consonant letter, but the H is totally silent. The first sound you actually hear is O, an honest person. See? It starts with a vowel sound, so we use an. So the big takeaway here is trust your ears, not your eyes. It's what you hear, not what you see. Next up, we've got quantifiers. And as the name kind of gives away, these are the determiners that tell us all about quantity or amount. How much, how many, that sort of thing. A classic pair that causes a lot of confusion, some and any, but the rule is actually pretty simple. We tend to use some in positive sentences, like, I have some ideas, or when we're offering something, like, hey, would you like some coffee? Then we use any for questions, like, do you have any advice? And for negative statements, like, I don't have any help. All right, let's talk much versus many. This one really just depends on whether you can count the noun or not. It's that simple. We use much for things you can't really count, you know, like water or time or money. You'd ask, how much time do we have? But for things you can count, like books or friends or dollars, you're gonna use many. How many books did you buy? Ooh, now this is a subtle one, but it is so important. Few and a few. They both mean a small number, right? But they have totally different feelings. Few on its own has a negative vibe. It implies not enough. So if you say, I have few friends, it sounds kind of sad, like you wish you had more. But a few is positive. It implies a small but totally sufficient amount. I have a few friends means you've got some, and that's a good thing. Okay, let's switch gears and look at the determiners that help us point things out and show who owns them. We're talking about demonstratives and possessives. Demonstratives are pretty straightforward. This and these are for things that are close to you. That and those are for things that are farther away. But here's the really cool part. Far doesn't just mean physical distance. It can also mean distance in time. So you could say, I saw that movie last week. The movie isn't physically far from you, but last week is in the past. Pretty neat, huh? And possessives are, well, exactly what they sound like. They show possession or ownership. Words like my, your, his, her, its, our, and their. They just answer the simple question, whose is it? Speaking of possessives, this brings us to what is, and I'm not exaggerating, probably one of the most common grammar mistakes in the entire English language. You ready for it? It's versus its. Its, no apostrophe, is the possessive one. For example, the dog wagged its tail. Its, with the apostrophe, is always, and I mean always, a short form for it is, like in, it's a beautiful day. Here's a foolproof trick. If you can't replace the word with it is, then you have to use its. Simple as that. Okay, to add that final layer of polish to your determiner skills, let's quickly look at two more really useful categories, distributives and interrogatives. Distributives, like each and every, are all about members of a group. You want to use each when you're focusing on the individual members, one by one. But you use every when you're thinking of the group as a whole, like a single unit. And of course, you got either and neither for when you're making a choice between exactly two things. And last but not least, interrogatives, which is just a fancy word for the determiners we use to ask questions. You use what when the options are totally open, totally unknown. What you want to do today, but you use which when you're asking someone to choose from a limited, specific set of options. Like, of these three colors, which one do you like best? And hey, a quick callback to our quantifier rule. Remember, when you're asking about quantity, it's always how much for the things you can't count and how many for the things you can. That rule is super consistent. Okay, I know that was a lot of information, so let's boil it all down. If you walk away with nothing else, please remember these three things. For articles, it's all about the sound, not the spelling. For quantifiers, just ask yourself if the situation is positive or negative, and if the noun is countable. And for possessives, for the love of grammar, never mix up its and its ever again. Here is a super handy checklist you can use anytime you're writing or proofreading something. Just quickly run through these questions. They cover all the most common situations and, more importantly, the most frequent mistakes. This will help you make sure your meaning is always crystal clear. So there you have it, the surprising power of determiners. They might be tiny, but getting them right is a massive step toward making your writing more precise, more professional, and just better. They really are the difference between confusion and clarity. Keep practicing, and thanks so much for joining me today.